Dialectical behavior therapy was created in the 1980s by Marsha Linehan in Seattle, Washington.
Today, DBT is taught all over the world.
We're two therapists who believe everyone can benefit from DBT skills.
I'm Kate.
I'm Michelle.
And this is DBT and Me. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our monthly episode. Before I dive into the differences of this monthly episode and what it's all about, etc., I do want to do a tiny bit of promotion, but just to tease it, the subject overarchingly for this month's episode is real-life examples of dialectics in Michelle and mine's lives and how that's showing up right now. But again, before I go more into that, I do want to first and foremost thank our new patron, Indy. Thank you so much, Indy, for supporting the podcast and Michelle and I. If you would like to join Indy in doing so, you can support our Patreon also at patreon.com/dbtandme. This month, however, our promotion spotlight goes to our Etsy shop, where you can get fun things like closing moments pillows and hang on, I'm radically accepting this t-shirts and other fun stuff. And you can find that at etsy.com/shop/dbtandme, or just search for DBT and Me once you get to Etsy. And heck, if you have gotten something from there or do, we always appreciate ratings and reviews, whether that be of the merchandise or of the podcast itself. So, all right, some things that are weird this month. I'm still recovering from my surgery, so I'm downstairs and back in the room with less good acoustics, which means there's more likely to be animal noises, traffic noises, and it's just a bit more, reverberant. Is that a word? In here. And also, due to scheduling fiascos of various and sundry sorts, Michelle and I are having to record this one separately again. So if it sounds a wee bit more disjointed or we have less interaction than normal and banter between us, we apologize. That's because it is in fact being recorded separately, which feels weird, guys, if I'm being honest. I'm not used to this whole recording thing being alone. I mean, not like I've never done it before. You guys know there's whole episodes that I've had to do by myself, but it's been a while. So, again, what did I say we were going to talk about this month? Real-life examples of dialectics. When Michelle and I were talking about what to do for this month, it occurred to both of us that in our lives right now, there were a lot of things that were showing up pretty dialectically. A couple of pretty big things, in fact, showing up with a lot of strong dialectics, and we realized it'd been a hot minute since we focused in on that. For being the D in the name of the damn therapy of DBT, dialectics don't always get, I would say, as much attention as maybe they deserve or I would love to give them. So I'm excited that we get to dive into this, even if, well, sort of by nature, if it's something that we're feeling dialectically about, there's going to be an upside and a downside to all of these things, or a downside and an upside, depending on which one we're noticing first. Yeah. We're just going to each take some time to share what the dialectic was, dive in a little bit more about sort of the explanation or the context for the dialectic that we'd been noticing, and then we'll each share basically what we've taken away, or our lesson of a sorts from the dialectic that we've been experiencing. Michelle is going to share two. I'm going to share two. And then we're switching it up because we are recording separately this time. You guys get a closing moment from Michelle, which I know happens now and then, also sort of like me recording by myself, but it still happens infrequently enough for me to think of it as a fun little oddity. Oddity? Little adventure? Fun little deviation from the norm. There we go. Technically the same thing as an oddity, but oddity makes it sound, I don't know, weirder or bad. I don't know. See, without Michelle, I'm just blathering on it, you guys, aren't I? Let's get on to talking about real-life examples of dialectics. My first example for a dialect going on in my life is feeling a tremendous amount of guilt and desire to make life easier for my sister for all she's having to do for our mom right now. And also, in no way, shape, or form wanting or feeling equipped to do any more for my mom or have my mom move closer to me or move in with me, etc. So those of you who've been listening long enough will know a lot of the context for this, but just to do a brief summary, my mom has dementia at this point pretty badly, pretty advanced. That being said, due to a combination of how fucked the systems are here in America and the fact that no one in my family is independently wealthy, my mom is still forced to be living independently at the moment. That being said, she lives about a 3.5-minute drive from my sister's house. For most of my life, it has been me in the caretaker role for my mom. Pretty much as soon as there was any even vague reasonableness for a child to be taking care of their mother, I was taking care of my mother. Notably, once she had some big health issues when I was 11, that led to me literally moving into a large walk-in closet space in her bedroom to better take care of her, right? And up until about 5 years ago, she also lived significantly closer to me than to my sister. Never a wee 3.5-minute drive away, usually more of a 30 to 45 minute or an hour and a half drive, depending on different times in my life away from me. But as the closest child, it was still me who came over to help her with yard work once her body was to the point where she couldn't do it very much. It was me who took care of her medically, showed up and took her to appointments when that was needed, went to the hospital with her when that was needed, right? I took care of her at home, as a child and a teenager before I even moved out. So there's a lot of my life where I've been the one to do this, which actually contributes to the sense of guilt that I'm feeling in this situation. Because both, I feel like I ought to be taking care of my mom still, right? That's sort of really ingrained in me since a young age. And I can see how much it's fraying my sister. She was talking to me recently about how she's quite literally having to fully manage, well, not fully manage, that's not giving enough credence to my brother-in-law. It's really, I should say they, but my sister, being my mother's daughter, is primarily the one managing 2 households, right? So she's having to worry about my mom's bills and my mom's food and my mom's medications and my mom's doctor's appointments and my mom's pets and my mom's cleaning her house and my mom's yard and my mom's everything, because my mom's brain is not capable of worrying about a lick of it, or certainly if she can worry about it, she can't take care of it. She can't execute doing anything about it. And so, this is understandably a huge amount, especially for someone who hasn't been in this caretaker role for much time, right? In that sense. I mean, she's been a mother, which is a whole nother level and type of caretaking. Not in any way trying to diminish that. Just, she's not used to having to take care of our mother. Reasonably so. She wasn't the one having to for a long time. So seeing how much this is weighing on my sister, admittedly, this is more intense taking care of my mother than I really ever had to do, other than maybe a couple of times immediately after she was hospitalized in the past. So yeah, it would be a lot for anyone to carry, and I can see how hard it is emotionally and practically for my sister. So that's the one side of the dialectic, is feeling guilty, both for just not taking care of my mother in my own right, because I'm used to that role, but more especially because I love my sister, I care for my sister, and I can see how hard it is to be in the role she's in right now. I'll also say that on average, my mom was more grateful for my help back when I was helping. Her dementia has certainly rendered her less charitable than usual. So my sister's also doing a whole lot of work with little to no thanks and a whole lot of blame instead. So that's a lot of the stuff living on one side of the dialectic. On the other side, I could in no way, shape, or form handle taking my mom on the way my sister has. Let's just be frank, my sister's a better adult than I am. I have a hard enough time doing my role in running one household, put another on top, and I'd just crumble like a cheap card trick. I am not made of that sort of sterner stuff in many ways. And also just emotionally and mentally. My mom's abuse and mistreatment over the course of my life has left me very fragile overarchingly when it comes to her. And if she either moved a 3-minute drive from me or, God forbid, goddess forbid, that she moved in with me, my emotional and mental well-being would not be able to accommodate that. I would break if I had to take care of my mom that way. There's also this, my sister and I have discussed this. There's a little bit of a sense of it sort of being her turn. Like, well, I did stuff that was less intense, but I did it for a lot more years than you're likely to have to. And you're the older sister, and now it's your turn. So this little bit of vindication or like righteous passing on of the torch. I don't know. It's a hard emotion to try and describe, if I'm being honest. But there's definitely just this deep awareness that as much as I may want to lighten the load for my sister, I don't have the spoons either just in practical skills senses or the spoons emotionally and mental wellness wise to be able to step in and really lighten her burden much at all, other than through, allowing her to vent or trying to be emotionally supportive of her. I can't, somewhere between can't and am unwilling, frankly, to take on many of the literal burdens right now. So what would I say is my takeaway from that, or what's the lesson that I would say that I'm learning for myself and that I maybe can pass on to others, both through the podcast here and just my work as a therapist, is that it makes sense, obviously, to want to lighten the burdens on those we love and take care of our family. Right? That is a thing that's normal, even if some of mine is rooted in my trauma, as a basic desire, wanting to take care of loved ones, including, lightening their burdens, makes perfect sense. And it makes sense to need to protect one's mental and emotional well-being first and foremost. And both of those things not just can be, but often are simultaneously true. And I'm certainly living in that space right now where I have a deep desire to lighten my sister's burden, and I need to protect my emotional well-being, my mental and emotional well-being in such a way that really prevents me from doing much in the way of lightening her burden. Okay, now time for my second example. This one goes to the dialectic of anticipating, like positively or excitedly anticipating my knee surgery, and also having a lot of fear and apprehension with approaching my knee surgery and its subsequent recovery. So as I think I've probably been mentioning the last couple of months, I hurt my knee in March through more wrestling with the medical system than I like to have to do. I did get an MRI, found out I fully ruptured my ACL, and I just had ACL reconstruction surgery a few weeks ago. And a partial meniscectomy on that knee too. That's my second partial meniscectomy. I have one on both knees now. Go me in symmetry or something. What is this dialectic? Where does this come from? What's the sort of context for it? Yes, the injury, but sorry guys, feeling a little bit discombobulated. Also, Goose was just eating, so sorry if you guys could hear that. I guess the anticipating it, perhaps it's funny. I think that part makes enough sense that I apparently didn't think it needed an explanation, but that I think is not true. So current me disagrees with note taking past me. I was looking forward to it because I want to have an ACL. The idea of having no ACL really frightened me for the rest of my life. Some of the sports I want to take up with Goose didn't feel very approachable with no ACL. And overarchingly, though some of them may have been harder to get to than others, I've always done well with my surgeries. I've had several over the course of my life. If we count wisdom teeth, I don't know if I always do, but that was fine. Right? I've had, as I said, 2 knee surgeries now. I've had 2 organs removed. I've had a breast reduction. I've had a lot of surgeries, and they've always really resulted in good outcomes for me, and that is really motivating for me. So I really wanted to get this knee surgery. I knew that getting it was going to start a 9 to 12 month recovery clock, and I just wanted to get that clock fucking going because I was excited to be moving towards an end state that ought to be better than it has been for months, even if it was going to take me some time. So that's where the positive side of things came from is, hey, I'm still not fully recovered through PT. I want to get something closer to full recovery, the full range of motion that I'm accustomed to, and have an ACL for the sports and other hobbies that I want to engage in. My body tends to do well, even if it takes a little longer to heal than some others with surgeries. And so, yeah, I'm just excited to have that done. And also, one of the reasons that I was very scared and apprehensive about it was because I put in so much work in physical therapy before the surgery. So much work. I was back to so close to more normal functioning before the surgery. I could walk an almost indefinite period of time. I was starting to be able to do little short bouts of jogging. I wouldn't say running. I could do little hops again. Like, I was starting to be able to sleep in different positions again. Like, I put in so much time and effort and had made so much recovery in PT before the surgery, which I know is normal. They want you to do a lot of recovering before the surgery because apparently the better you're healed before the surgery, the better the outcome afterwards. But it was so hard to face taking so many steps back, right? From being, free of all braces and crutches and everything else to being back in a brace for 6 weeks and back on crutches and not able to, do stairs and yada, yada, yada. It was just really hard to face losing as much progress as I'd made with how much effort I'd put into it. And also, it's, how do I phrase that? I mean, while I think that I worry about the outcomes of surgeries far less than most people, there's always uncertainty when you're facing a surgery. And with this one in particular, I knew that I would be facing a lot of physical therapy afterwards. And one of the other things causing me to have a lot of fear and apprehension facing the surgery was, am I going to be able to keep myself good about doing my PT? Because if I can't, then getting the surgery was the wrong idea. Because it will make it so that I end up being worse than I was before the surgery. So I really need to be more methodical about my my PT than my brain usually does well at being methodical, right? Like, I have ADHD, guys. Doing something the same way all the time isn't my strong suit, shall we say. And so I've been really frightened about my ability to stick with doing the type and amount of PT that I need to do to get the kind of results that I want from this surgery. Again, like I said, 9 to 12 month recovery clock. And that's if I'm doing it right, if I'm doing it well. And I'm already starting to have a little bit of a harder time with that. And I'm not even a full month away from the surgery. That doesn't come until tomorrow. So, yeah. On the one hand, surgeries have gone, just sort of summarized, surgeries have gone great for me, and I'm looking forward to a full recovery. And also, it was hard to take so many steps back from the progress I'd already made and face an even longer journey with PT that I needed to be even more regimented about if I wanted the kind of results that I was facing. If I wanted the kind of results that if I wanted the kind of results that I'm looking for. There you go, that I'm desiring. Pardon me, guys. I'm realizing that I accidentally, copied and pasted a bit of Michelle's notes into a piece of my notes. And so I'm like, wait, that's not what I learned from this. So give me a moment to reconnoiter and put my own words here instead of accidentally give one of Michelle's takeaways, which would make no sense with what I was talking about. What my takeaway from this one actually is, or the lesson that I'm learning here, is that there's so much uncertainty with the human body. And really, that's what I'm facing with this surgery. The uncertainty of how the surgery will go to begin with. The uncertainty, well, that's what I was facing before it went. Now I'm facing the uncertainty of how will my body heal? How well will I be able to do at holding to the schedule and the regiment of PT? So it makes sense to be looking forward to a, more normal functioning state, and to be frightened of the road that it's going to take to get there, I guess, is what I'm thinking of for my takeaway from this one. And I guess that's probably true of things other than just physical well-being, right? I can see this showing up in mental health too a lot, right? That it makes sense to be excited about getting healthier and frightened of how much work or what the, suffering or difficulties might look like between here and there. So, yeah, I think that's it for me. Thanks so much. Goodbye, everybody. See you next month.
Well, hi, everybody. It's now my turn to share. in, I guess, a little bit of a sneak peek behind the scenes sort of way, even though Kate did her sharing first in this episode for all of you. I'm actually recording my part before she's getting around to recording hers. So all of that is to say that even though Kate and I, of course, touched base before recording this episode, and I'm sure she already shared with, or will share with all of you, the background of why we are once again recording separately for this monthly episode. I also want to recognize that the way she shared her examples of dialectics and the way that I might share mine, they could be slightly different. And hopefully, however she shared is really helpful, and that however I share will also feel helpful as well, even if the way we might each do our different sections of this episode could be unique to us. The way that I want to do mine is that, I have two real life examples as well that I really notice dialectics showing up for me super strongly. And I want to share each of those by first sharing a little bit of a story and the background before I actually really hone in on the dialectic itself. And then I'm going to share what I want all of you listening to take away from my specific example. So that's how I'm going to do this twice with two different examples before I do closing moment and wrap up the episode. So my first example is a big one. Again, I have no idea if Kate will mention this at the beginning when introducing the episode or not. But a big reason why we are recording separately today is because my mother-in-law recently died. She died almost 2 weeks ago. And I'm going to explain a little bit about the backstory here behind her loss. But it was very unexpected and the closest that I have come to death. I've had other people in my life die, of course, but my mother-in-law lived with my husband and I. She's lived with us the whole time that I lived with him, and I've lived with him since 2018, and the two of them lived together since 2017. So it's never been just me and my husband in our household. It's always been this multi-generational living situation with my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law, for the amount of time that I knew her, always had chronic health issues, lots of pain in different areas of her body, lots of COPD and asthma and inhalers and breathing issues and just all kinds of things that were kind of chronically going on for her physically, resulting in her struggling with her health in a lot of different ways. And for about a month or two before she died, she was really having this very intense, very bad cough. And we could tell she was having more breathing issues than usual. And eventually this culminated in her one night coming into our bedroom in the middle of the night at 2:30 in the morning and waking us up and saying, I'm struggling to breathe. And she really was. I mean, she could not really catch her breath. My husband took her to the hospital, and after a few days of being in the hospital, we learned that she had some very advanced lung cancer, that she basically had a large mass on her left lung, and that her left lung was non-functional. And no wonder she was having such trouble breathing recently. It makes perfect sense. And with this diagnosis of lung cancer, she was told, you have 3 months to live if you don't do chemotherapy. And if she did do chemotherapy, it was only going to be 18 months to live. And I totally understood and supported her decision to not do chemotherapy. So we knew that her life expectancy was very short and that she was at the end of her life. Also, as an aside, you all may be able to hear my daughter crying downstairs. She's really fussy, and there's not going to be a good way to edit it out. Okay, coming back to my story. So she's given 3 months to live, and she was then eligible for hospice care. So after a few days in the hospital, she came back home to us, and we started getting things set up for her care. The hospice company provided her with, an oxygen tank and a wheelchair and a hospital bed and all this equipment that she needed in the home to make her comfortable. And we started getting phone calls from all the different people within the hospice company, the social worker and the shower aide and the nurse and all these people who needed to set up meetings to come see her. And unfortunately, she was only home for about 3 days before her breathing started getting worse again. She started using her nebulizer a lot more than she was supposed to. And when the hospice nurse came out to check on her and learned of this, they recommended that she go back to the hospital. And so she did. And once she got back in the hospital, she rapidly deteriorated. She started showing some very clear signs of dementia. She didn't know what year it was. She didn't know that my husband was her son. She was struggling to speak a lot of the time. She was kind of more just incoherently babbling. And she was sleeping a lot, which she had also been doing at home. But it became pretty clear pretty quickly that she was declining so much that she would not be able to come home. And sure enough, 5 days later, she died. And all of this took place in the course of 2 weeks. She actually died 2 weeks to the day from that night when she woke us up in the middle of the night and asked us to take her to the hospital the first time. So this is a big change in my life. I've lost my mother-in-law. My children have lost one of their grandmothers who was a fixture in our daily life because she lived with us. And it really brought up for me exploring this topic of death in a way that I haven't explored it or thought about it much before. And especially when she was in the hospital those final 5 days, I started oddly seeing the similarities in how I was feeling about her being in the hospital. And my role really was that I did go and see her twice. Once with my husband, and my children stayed the night with my parents so that I could go see her without them being there. And then another time we did take the kids to go see her. So I saw her twice in the final days of her life. But I realized how similarly I was feeling to when I was pregnant with my son. My son was born 2 weeks after his due date. I was very pregnant when I was finally induced and gave birth to him. And I remembered waking up every morning and thinking, is today going to be the day that I go into labor? Every morning for 2 weeks. I woke up and I thought that. And every day for about 2 weeks, the answer was no. I would go to bed that night and I had not gone into labor and I was still pregnant. And I oddly found myself feeling similarly about her death. I would wake up in the morning and I would go, is today the day she's going to die? I wonder if it is. And if this is the day she's going to die, then what needs to be adjusted or moved around in my schedule? And I really reached this point after about 3 days of doing that where I said, Michelle, you can't do this anymore. You can't keep wondering Is she going to die today? Like, you cannot predict that. The same way that I could not have predicted that I would have been pregnant for 41 weeks and 6 days. I could not have predicted when her time was going to come to leave this earth. And I found myself feeling so many mixed emotions because on the one hand, I was incredibly, in a way, horrified by how quickly things had turned for her. And to be honest, she was only 66, which is decently young. Many people live well into their 80s and 90s these days. 66 is, all things considered, a fairly young age to die. And of course, in so many ways, I wanted her to have more time. I was terrified of the thought of her dying so soon and so suddenly. And yet I also found myself, which I really felt guilt about in many ways, but I also found this other part of me that once she was in the hospital a second time, I was just sitting there day after day, almost thinking to myself, oh, there's a small part of me that hopes today is the day that she dies. And I didn't know what to do with that part of me. And I tried to understand it. I tried to, kind of be hard on it a little bit, to be like, how can you think that? But from everything my husband was telling me while he was at the hospital with her by her side all those days, is that she was in a place of a lot of pain. They had her on a pump for her pain meds, which I didn't know that existed, but where she could basically press a button and it would give her pain meds. I mean, she was on a lot of opiates, just trying to make her comfortable. She, in her final days, like the final 24 to 48 hours before she passed, she wasn't having conversations with anybody. She wasn't eating. She wasn't getting out of her bed. She was truly just laying there, existing, but not living in any kind of way. And I did not want her to experience that for any length of time. I knew it was torture for her, and it was also torture for us to see her like that. And so the dialectical thought that I'm leading up to here is that I was really experiencing this strong dialectic of how can it be that I both want someone to live and I want them to die? How can that be? That dialectic does not make sense to me. That's what inspired me to suggest this episode topic to Kate of like, can we talk more about dialectics showing up in our real life? Is because I experienced so many dialectics in those 2 weeks. I both wanted to take care of her at home and wanted her at home with us. And another part of me was like, I don't want to be tasked with managing her medication and taking care of her dogs and, having to help her get out of bed and preparing her food. I don't want that. But I also did because I loved her and I wanted her to be in a place that was familiar to her. And I felt almost like honored and blessed that I got to take care of her. There's another one. I both very much wanted my husband to be at the hospital with her as much as he could be. And I also wanted him home with me and the kids. I solo parented a lot those 2 weeks. It was a roller coaster. I never knew what to expect on any given day. And that was really hard. There were a lot of dialectics. But the dialectic that I want you all to take away, yes, maybe some of you find yourselves in a very similar situation to me, where you have a loved one who is at the end stages of their life, and you can really relate to that very specific dialectic of wanting the person to live and to die. Maybe you can relate to that. But I think what we all can take away from this dialectic that I'm speaking about is that when we're on the cusp of a transition, any transition, in this case, I'm talking about the transition from life to death. I also spoke a little bit to the transition of pregnancy to birth. There's a transition. But any transition, that it's really normal to both wish for the transition to happen and like really feel this impatience as you're anticipating it, and to also like hate the transition or wish it wasn't happening or want everything to stay the same. It's so normal to experience that with any kind of change. Yes, I'm talking about a big change with somebody who, again, I was extremely close to dying. But any transition, whether it's a quote unquote happy one or a quote unquote sad one, any transition I think can come with those feelings. This is why we have the expression with marriage of getting cold feet. Yeah, that phrase embodies this dialectic of, yeah, there's a part of you that really, really wants to get married and loves this person so much and wants to spend the rest of your life with them. And that there's another part of you that's like, what am I doing? Do I really want this? Maybe I should just stay single. Maybe we shouldn't go through with this wedding. What if it all falls apart? It's normal. And the reason why it's so normal to have this dialectical thought is that every transition can come with some element of fear because you're crossing over to something new and you don't know what it is yet. And anytime we have a new experience, it's really common that we feel something in the fear family, worry, nervous, anxious, pick your word that fits for you. But we feel something with fear. And that's the part that makes us want to be like, no, don't change. Stay just how this is, right? I don't want my mother-in-law to die. I love her. She's not supposed to die this young. At only 66. No, this is wrong. This is bad. This shouldn't be happening. Versus, well, this is happening. And all I really want is for her to go as quickly and easily as possible if she is truly at that point in her life where it is coming to an end. So I hope that makes sense as what I want you to take away from this dialectical situation, this huge dialectical situation that I have been going through in my life. I feel a lot of dialectics too, and even the aftermath of her death. I feel both really sad about clearing out the belongings from her room, and I also feel simultaneously excited for how we can now use that space as a family. We're thinking about converting it into an office for my husband and I. We don't have a separate room for an office right now at our house. And I noticed too, this is another thing I want you all to think about, how often we label one side of the dialectic as maybe like the good side or the side we're, supposed to be feeling. And then also like really criticize or feel like one side is bad or taboo. I could tell as soon as I said it out loud to all of you, I'm like, hold on a second. I can tell as soon as I say it aloud that like, wait, I'm kind of excited to convert her room to an office. I felt immense guilt. Immense. Like, no, Michelle, you're not supposed to feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. You should only feel sad. It's not how it works, you guys. Rarely do we ever feel just one thing. So be kind on yourself with all the emotions you experience when it comes to transitions and change in your life in all forms it takes. Be really kind to yourself and normalize all your feelings because it's okay to feel them all. Okay, I'm going to move on to my second dialectical example. This one is, I suppose, again, here I go. putting a label on it or judging it, right? I just shared one that was really heavy and sad about death. The other dialectic that I'm aware of that I'm really juggling within myself on like a daily basis pertains to something that you could say is maybe more happier. So that's a shift and a transition. I'll explain the backstory as I did for the one about my mother-in-law. In general, my life right now looks extremely busy and full. I obviously have 2 kids, 3 and under. They keep me busy. My daughter's now walking. That's fun. They keep me very busy. I am running my own business with being a therapist. And in order to pay the bills and make ends meet, especially to unfortunately now make up for some of the rent that my mother-in-law used to pay us every month, and now we're not receiving that from her any longer, I just took on like 2 new clients, opened up 2 new spots in my schedule just within the last couple weeks since she died. So I'm now seeing about 20 clients a week. But if you all think that equates to, oh, Michelle, you only work 20 hours, lucky you. Nope, you're mistaken. There's a lot of admin work that goes into running a business successfully. I absolutely work pretty close to 40 hours a week, even when I have 20 clients a week or so that I'm seeing. That's only a percentage of what I do. There's a lot of other behind the scenes stuff I do as well. So I have my business, I have my kids, I have things that I want to do with my family, with my friends, with my husband. I have activities that I do on a regular basis with my children. We go to a toddler yoga class every week. I go to a mom support group every other week, which is now on a summer break, but will resume in the fall. I do that. I have my kids' appointments. I have things like, trying to go shop at Costco once a month. Like clean my house on any kind of regular basis. I mean, any of you who are parents of young kids, especially if you also work, you know the exact struggle that I'm talking about. Here's the interesting thing. So my plate is full. It's busy, right? And yet there are these things that have come up in recent months that when they've presented themselves to me, I've just kind of had this inner knowing of like, oh yes, I want to add that thing to my plate. That sounds very fulfilling. I want to do that thing. So one of those things actually relates to my mom support group, which is that every good organization, volunteer or, a business, whatever it is, there are people that are in, leadership roles, management positions, whatever you want to call it. And you need those people to run the organization and oversee things and be the decision makers. And I knew that I wanted to join the leadership committee for my mom support group. This was the first year that I was a participant in this group, and I knew that going into the fall, I wanted to be part of leadership. And so I signed up to be a part of it, which means attending a monthly meeting with the other members of the leadership team, but especially in my particular role that I signed up to do, my role is intense. It requires so much work behind the scenes because I am one of the people responsible for staffing the childcare program that is an integral part of this mom support group, because we need on-site childcare for the moms to then have their time without their kids running around and distracting them. So me and my there's two of us in this position. Thank goodness. It's not just me by myself, but we're having to basically find and hire and train and manage an entire childcare team. And the mom support group in general has gone through a lot of structural changes this year. And so it's just a lot of work to adapt to all that's required of us. Like, it was a bigger thing to put on my plate than I thought it would be. And then another thing that recently came on my plate is that my husband and I went to this kids' clothing consignment sale. And out of curiosity, we were like, how do you get your items for the sale? And they were like, well, anybody can sign up to be a consignor. And I just, again, knew it in my gut. I was like, I want to do this. We have so many kid things around. You know, my daughter is our last child. So once she outgrows things, we're moving those items out of our home one way or another. So I want to do this. I want to become a consignor. And then I took a deeper dive into that. And oh my goodness, they want you to do a lot of work. You have to create tags and label all your clothing accurately when all your items. And there's like all of these requirements. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is actually going to take a lot of time to like find everything in our house, put it into their system, print off our tags, clip our tags, attach our tags. Like, whoa, I just signed up for a lot. But here's the dialectic, is that on the one hand, I find myself constantly questioning what is on my plate and wishing so deeply that I really had a less full plate. I mean, if you guys want to talk about please skills, my please skills suck right now. I don't get enough sleep every night. I mean, I'm up at 5 a.m. every morning. I'm not getting enough sleep. I am many days not drinking enough water. Like, I'm just kind of running on fumes in my life. And so, yes, there's this part of me that's like, I want less in my life. I want to be far less busy than I am. I want things to slow down. That's one part of the dialectic that I want to share. The other part, though, is that I fucking love what's on my plate. And there is no part of me that wants to say like, oh yeah, my plate's full. I can't take on anything else. I so have this point of view of like, no, I could take more on my plate. I want to take more on my plate. If something new comes along that I'm really jazzed about, I'm going to add it to my plate. Because the things on my plate make me happy. I love the things on my plate. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's work that feels so fulfilling to me. The work of my mom support group, the work of my business, the work of now doing these consignment sales that take place like every couple months, so I can just keep this ball rolling for a very long time. I want to do these things. I like my full plate. In fact, yeah, as I just said a minute ago, I fucking love my full plate. So I juggle this dialectic daily in my life of having moments and days where I'm like, I hate how busy I am. This is too much. What am I doing? And then moments and days where I'm like, I would not want it to look any other way. This is great. This isn't too much. This is perfect. This is just right. And I really struggle to know, well, that's interesting. This is how it came to me just now before I said it out loud. I tell myself sometimes, which side are you going to listen to, Michelle? Like, I feel like I have to choose with this dialectic. I don't think I actually do. Like, my wise mind tells me I don't have to choose. But something else within me is like, no, you're supposed to decide. Are you slowing down or are you speeding up? Take your pick, get in one lane and stay there. Like, take things off your plate, or yeah, if you're deciding to add more, then go for it, but you have to pick. But also, I think I kind of know that this has been a dialectic I've honestly experienced probably my whole life. because I've always led a very full, busy life. And I constantly go back and forth of whether I love it or hate it. But it's both, right? That's why we have the expression of how we can have a love-hate relationship with things. It just varies. And for me, it really comes down to like, I just need to trust whatever is coming to me at the time. Like, if I'm meant to slow down, life will probably have a way of slowing me down. And if I'm meant to do more, life will probably have a way of giving me more. And one is not better than the other. Again, like being mindful of that trap I spoke about just a little bit ago of like really believing like, well, one side of this dialectic is the correct side and then the other side is wrong and bad. No, there isn't a right or wrong answer here. I can make a strong argument either way. Strong argument for like, yeah, Michelle, you need to really chill out. And a strong argument for, no, keep doing what you're doing. It's all good. I can make a strong argument either side. And I don't need to argue those two sides within myself. I don't have to let one be the winner. They can just both be there because they are very much both there. I go back and forth all the time. So what I want all of you to take away from this, even if your plate is filled with very different things than mine, because you may not be a parent, you may not be a business owner, your plate is beautifully unique to your own life with what fills your time and where you put your energy. But I think the takeaway that I want for you is, especially if you're a type A personality like I am, y'all know that about me by now, is that like the true thing is that we honestly need both. We really do. We need both of the things that I'm describing here. We are meant to have lives that are filled with meaning. And the things that often give our lives meaning are things that we're normally putting a fair amount of time or energy into. I think when you ask somebody like, what's something that you love, and they tell you what it is, they've probably worked hard to get to that thing, or they work hard to maintain it. But hard doesn't have to mean difficult. It just means like you're going to output a lot of resources into something that's meaningful for you. That's just how it works. My mom support group matters to me. I'm going to be putting time into it. But it gives back to me even more than what I put in. So yes, on the one hand, we do need to fill our lives with things that are meaningful to us. And we also need to rest. Life is also about slowing down and appreciating and being mindful, which, as I shared with all of you in the last monthly episode, mindfulness is not my forte. It's not my strength. That was like a dirty little secret to admit. But it's not. Resting doesn't come supernaturally to me. And I do also need to remember that that is essential as well. Having things that give our life meaning is essential, and having rest is also essential. And I realized as I was typing up my notes about this particular dialectic that I chose, I was like, wait a second, what am I really speaking about? Oh, I'm really just speaking about doing and being mind, right? We have that way to conceptualize wise mind, the intersecting circles of doing and being mind. And when you're really in a place of both, then you're in your wise mind. So I think a lot of this, like for me, and maybe for some of you, is like, I just need to trust myself. When I get the strong, like, oh yeah, I want to do that. That sounds awesome. To trust that. And when I have the days where I'm like, oh gosh, I'm just wishing I could breathe right now, then I need to listen and trust those days too, of like, hey, maybe I was going to stay up late working on some stuff for the mom support group, but not tonight. Tonight's not the day for that. Tonight may be the day to go to bed earlier, or tonight may be the day to watch some trashy reality TV, which I still manage to make a little bit of time for every day. But I just need to listen. Because when I listen to my inner knowing and I listen to my wise mind, I really can't go wrong with this dialectic, even though sometimes I definitely fear that I'm going wrong with it. I can't. It's not possible. If I'm listening to wise mind, I'm all good. All right, so we're going to transition to closing moment here shortly. But before we do, I know Kate did self-promotion at the beginning. She got the front end of things this monthly episode, but I'm actually going to slip in a quick promotion of my own before closing moment. So I don't know if you all remember, because it was quite a while ago now, but Kate and I have had some amazing guests on the podcast over time. And one of those guests we had on quite a while ago now, maybe almost a year ago. I did not pull up the exact episode date, but was Diana Partington, if that name rings a bell. She really talked about how Buddhism and DBT can share a lot of similarities, which was so cool to learn about. And Diana calls herself, which is the perfect term, she calls herself a DBT evangelist. And she is so right. Maybe similar to Kate and I, because we have our podcast and we have our book, and we want to get DBT out to the masses in any way necessary, any way that feels accessible for people to learn this. And Diana does that. But not only does she does that, she lives and breathes that. This is truly her life's work to make DBT known to as many people as possible, which is just beautiful to me that she is so clearly passionate about DBT. Probably more passionate about DBT than anybody I've ever met in the DBT world, to be very frank. She loves DBT. And that means that she was led to, a few months ago now, start an online DBT community. And she is cranking out DBT content like no tomorrow. She has daily content, weekly content, monthly content. She has webinars. She has blogs. She has short videos. She has everything, you guys, in this DBT community, especially if you are a self-taught DBT person, or you're someone, again, who just loves DBT, but you're I'm never going to join a DBT group. I'm never going to do a Fidelity DBT program. Or again, you just struggle to access resources for DBT, again, having your own DBT therapist or things like that. Her community is where you want to be, especially if you're over look, you guys, I've read the books. Reading books about DBT is not working for me. I need something to really bring this stuff to life. Hopefully our podcast does that a little bit, but I know that this podcast is certainly not the end all be all when it comes to learning DBT. There's so many other ways and people to learn it from. And Diana in her community is knocking that out of the park. So the reason why I'm mentioning her community today in this monthly episode is because I recently was asked by her to do a talk in her community. She's choosing, a bunch of mental health professionals, and she's asking all of us to pick our favorite DBT skill and talk about it for an hour and share with her community. And really, we just have a conversation, Diana and I. It was, and when I did my talk, it was so organic. I had no idea what she was going to ask me, no idea how it was going to flow, but it went awesome. I talked about willingness. That was the skill that I chose. And so this talk is now in her community. It's something that once people in the community join, you get, I don't know what you'd call it. You get to replay all the stuff that she does. So it's all there. But I was we haven't mentioned your community on the podcast yet. I really want to make sure I talk about it and spread the word. And if you're wondering what the cost of this is, it's $50 a month. And I'm just going to put that into perspective for all of you. To join an actual DBT group, say, Kate still facilitates groups. Kate runs, a 9-week DBT module, and each DBT group is 2 hours a night. That 2 hours costs more than $50. So we're saying $50 per month for all of this amazing content that Diana has. And I'm telling you, if you truly dove into everything she offers, which is a lot, I mean, it's a lot, but it allows you to pick and choose which stuff you like, and you certainly don't have to use everything that's in the community. It's just there if you want to. But if you were, you would be probably doing, oh my gosh, at least 10 plus hours of DBT a week. That's how much content she's creating for $50 a month. Like, it is a gift what this community costs. So I cannot recommend joining enough. We're going to put the link to it in the show notes for this episode. I'm also going to post about it in our Facebook group. I made a quick post like a couple days before my talk because I wanted to get the word out that I was doing the talk with her, but I'm going to post it again for after this episode releases. Go join her community. And I did not look up the exact link before I started recording, but if you just search for like Diana Partington, like DBT for Life community, you will find it and you can join. Please do it. You will get your money's worth. And I don't say that lightly because I think there are a lot of things in life where we don't get our money's worth and we feel disappointed. Not so with this community. She gave me a whole tour of it. Like, we sat down on a Zoom call before I did my talk so we could prep a little bit, and she showed me around the community, and I was so impressed, you guys. It's top notch. So go and find it, DBT for Life community with Diana Partington. Okay, I'm done with my on the sly promotion. Now we'll move into closing moment. So wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing as you're listening, seeing if you can take a moment to pause, even if your body is still moving physically, even if your eyes are still open, just taking a mental or emotional pause within your body. And if you are able to close your eyes and settle in to this closing moment, I invite you to do so if you're able. And as you're here in this moment, start to think about your own life. Maybe you have some really big things happening, major changes going on. Or maybe your life feels pretty mundane or status quo at the moment, with nothing special happening. Either way, dialectics are contained in every single day. In every day, we experience times of feeling and thinking multiple things at the same time that at first glance really seem opposed to one another. So as you think about what your life currently looks like, maybe almost imagining yourself watching your life as if you were watching a movie, start to get curious about your own dialectic that you are currently living in. Begin to get curious about where you might feel conflicted or confused within yourself. Where you may be facing struggle or stress, and see what dialectic is living within that. How you may be feeling multiple things, and how you may be, as I named earlier, putting pressure on yourself to choose and decide. Or how you might be labeling one part of your experience as good and the other as bad. And noticing how that can be what creates stress rather than whatever the external circumstances are. And with so much compassion and grace for yourself, let yourself really see the dialectic here. See if you can name it. If it starts to become clear of what the things are that you're wanting. And just letting that dialectic settle without telling yourself any judgmental thought about it, about either side of it. Just letting it be. Recognizing that there is wisdom in this dialectic for you. And perhaps making a commitment to yourself to notice when you see this dialectic coming up as you go through your life. And appreciating it when it comes up. And now, when you're ready, as this closing moment concludes, if you have had your eyes closed, you may now begin to open them. You might start to move your body a little bit, taking maybe 1 or 2 deeper breaths as you return to the space that you're in and go about the rest of your day. Thanks for being here with us, everybody. I'm going to cross my fingers that we'll be coming back together next month to record in real time. But thank you for being here today. We really appreciate all of you. All right, bye. To learn more about us and the DBT skills we're teaching each week, join our Facebook group. Simply log in to your Facebook profile and search for DBT and Me Podcast.